You are listening to LawWithDenise.net, the best law podcast for A-level, undergraduate, GDL, and master's law students. Your host is Denise, your experienced law teacher sharing knowledge on various areas of law, including contract, torts, the English legal system, and criminal law. Understand the law better and learn the skills you need to get the grades you need.
Hi, welcome to the Law with Denise podcast. You're listening to episode 007, and I am Denise. In this episode, we are exploring the following three questions. We're asking, what is the difference between regulations, treaties, and directives? 2, we're asking, what is meant by direct applicability? And then thirdly, we're asking, are directives, treaties, and regulations directly applicable? So let's begin. Question 1. What is the difference between directives, regulations, and treaties? So treaties are primary sources of European Union law. And when we speak of treaties and we're referring to the European Union, we are really speaking of the Treaty of the European Union and the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. These treaties together constitute the foundation of the European Union. They tell us how the Union functions, what the role of the institutions are. Regulations and directives are some examples of secondary sources of European Union law. And the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union tells us what these sources of secondary legislation are. So if we refer to Article 288 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union, we get to learn that regulations are pieces of legislation that are directly applicable. Article 288 tells us that directives are not directly applicable, but they are also pieces of legislation that are created in the European Union. So what is the difference between directives and regulations? Let us go on to question 2 in order to understand that point a bit more. Remember, question 2 was, what is meant by direct applicability? Well, if a source of European Union law is said to be directly applicable, it means that once it is created, it automatically becomes part of member states' national legal system. It is automatically enforceable within member states. Now, regulations are clear, precise pieces of legislation, and once they are created, they are automatically enforceable in member states. But directives look very different to regulations. Directives are not precise and straightforward as regulations. They are more broad-based policy pieces of legislation with a specific intent. And once they are passed, they do not automatically become law in member states. Member states have the responsibility to create national law in a form that meets the specific intent of the directive in question. So we have a directive for equal pay from 1975, but when that directive was created, it was not automatically enforceable in member states. Member states had a responsibility to create national law which met the specific intent of the directive. So Parliament needed to create an act of Parliament, or perhaps create some delegated legislation, create a parent act and then give power to another body to create delegated legislation to meet the specific intent of this directive. So direct applicability simply means that when the law is created, it is automatically part of member states' national legal system. It is automatically enforceable. Regulations are directly applicable because they are clear and specific, straightforward. Directives, on the other hand, are not directly applicable because they are more like directions with some broad policy towards a specific intent. And once they are created, member states have the responsibility to create national law within their states within a specified time as directed by the European Union, but they do have this responsibility to create national law. So that's why we say they are not directly applicable. Treaties are directly applicable, and they are directly applicable because member states agreed to this when they signed up to the European Union. They agreed that the treaties would be automatically enforceable in their member states. So remember, our first question was, what is the difference between treaties, regulations, and directives? Remember, treaties are primary sources of European Union law. Regulations and directives are some sources of secondary law, which comes from the European Union. Direct applicability means that a piece of European Union law, if it is directly applicable, becomes enforceable as soon as it is passed. Are treaties, regulations, and directives directly applicable? Treaties are directly applicable, and regulations are directly applicable, but directives are not. So there you go. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to LawWithDenise.net, the best law podcast for A-level, undergraduate, GDL, and master's law students. Your experienced law teachers sharing knowledge on various areas of law, including contract, tort, the English legal system, and criminal law. If you like the content, please remember to like, share, and comment. Thank you.